You are constantly inundated with information on Facebook, at school, from friends. How do you gather information and decide what to believe? Scientists, and probably all of us without even realizing, use the scientific method. So what is the scientific method? It is essentially a series of steps that allow us to make an organized and rigorous search for reliable information in the world around us. And built into this method is the understanding that any information we have is never complete, and therefore any conclusions we draw are always subject to change when we receive new information. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I'm not a scientist, so why do I care? But the truth is, learning about the scientific method and how to implement this into our own thinking can make us better able to analyze information that we hear or read online and decide if that information is reliable. Because I don't know about you, but I prefer facts over alternative facts or even opinions. I mean, it's way easier to win an argument when you have the real facts. Before we go forward, I just want to point out that the scientific method does have certain limitations. While it can provide us with facts, it certainly cannot tell us what is right or wrong or define a course of action. That is outside the scope of science. However, by providing us with accurate information, it allows each of us to formulate our own opinions about what we may feel is right or wrong. So let's take a look at how the scientific method works. It starts with an observation, which is simply something you see or notice in the world around you. In this case, you notice that your head hurts. Now, based on this observation, that your head hurts, and your previous knowledge, you can formulate a hypothesis about why your head hurts. A scientific hypothesis proposes an explanation and it must be testable. Meaning that it leads to predictions with measurable outcomes. So in this case, you might hypothesize that your head hurts because you have a tension headache. If your hypothesis is truly testable, then it must lead to two opposing predictions with measurable outcomes. For example, if my head hurts because I do in fact have a tension headache, then my head will stop hurting when I take Advil. And conversely, if the pain is not being caused by a tension headache, then my head will not stop hurting when I take Advil. After making our predictions, we put our hypothesis to the test by taking Advil and waiting to see if our headache goes away. Unfortunately, a few hours later, after taking the Advil, you find that your head still hurts. What do? We must reject our original hypothesis and come up with a new one. Alternate explanations for your lingering headache might be that you didn't have time to eat breakfast today, or that you had a little too much to drink last night, or perhaps this lingering headache could even be a brain tumor. As you happen to have a granola bar in your bag, you decide to start by eating a snack. If your headache goes away, you will likely conclude that you do not have a brain tumor, and even though you did go out drinking last night, you didn't go overboard. So in this case, you will not reject your hypothesis that your headache was caused by fasting. Now, for most of us, that would be the end of the headache ordeal, and we would move on with our day. However, for a scientist, that would not be enough, and we would have to take our investigation a step further, because if our hypothesis was truly correct, it will lead to another prediction. For example, one prediction might be that if you eat regularly throughout the day and avoid skipping meals, you will get headaches less frequently. To test this, you could keep a log for a month and see how frequently you get headaches. Depending on your results, you might continue to accept your hypothesis, or you might throw it out for a new one. So this process of testing things again and again and being willing to reject our original hypothesis is what sets science apart and makes this process very rigorous. Having an idea or opinion about something is not the same as subjecting it to this process. And if we start to integrate this method of thinking critically about information we are presented with, we can become more confident that our ideas and beliefs are based in fact.